With us in our studio in Jerusalem is Ken Abramowitz, founder of SaveTheWest.com. Shalom.
Shalom.
Thank you very much for coming to our studio.
Pleasure to be here.
Today I'd like to talk with you about war. You're saying that we are in the midst of a world war?
Yes. We do not know it. I mean, collectively, we do not think that way. But what's going on right now, I call World War III. And half of the war is outside the country, half the war inside the country. And this is for all democratic countries. Roughly half the people in the world live in a democratic country, half live in an authoritarian country. The authoritarian countries, half the world, have basically declared war on the democracies. So therefore I call it World War III. Not that we declared war on the dictatorships, but the dictatorships declared war on us, and that puts us in a war whether we want to be or not.
Now you divide this into colors.
Yes. So I color code the bad guys, the authoritarian governments, into roughly a third, the reds, the greens, and the blues. So the reds, traditional color for communists. There's really no communist countries left anymore, but they're still authoritarian. So China and Russia, North Korea would be the reds. The greens would be Iran and the Muslim Brotherhood, financed by Turkey and Qatar, as well as Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and hundreds of different names around the world. And then the blues would be the globalists, color-coded blue for the United Nations color.
And as we're seeing the colors now on the illustration, you have the whites. Who are the whites?
The whites, by the way, the good guys are white and yellow according to my chart. The yellows, us, the sunlight of Western civilization, sunlight of democracy, sunlight of the rule of law, which is a combination of Torah plus the basic laws. In America, it would be a combination of the Old and New Testament plus the Constitution and Bill of Rights. This rule of law is what I call the sunlight or the yellows. The whites, color-coded white for the surrender flag, are not bad people. They're actually good people, but they do not understand or see the reason to fight over there or over there in the Ukraine or Taiwan or Nigeria. They say, look, leave me alone. I just have to grow my family and do a good job at my work. Don't bother me with these foreign adventures. Those would be the whites. President Trump, by the way, was both a yellow and a white. The bad guys are the reds, the greens, and the blues, and basically they've taken over the U.S. government. So the U.S. government has elements of reds and greens and blues in it.
When did this start? When did this war begin?
Well, first, no one announced the war. So people say, war? I didn't see that in the newspaper. So the wars have been going on for actually a long time. In 1917, Lenin and his communists illegally took over Russia. Mm-hmm. So that war has been going on and made the decision to take over the world, by the way. So that's been going on a little over 100 years. The blues began in 1923 with the League of Nations, which then became the United Nations in 1946. So the globalist war has been going on almost 100 years. In the green, or the Islamist war, not Islam, Islamist war, or also known as political Islam, that war has been going on for 1,400 years since Muhammad and his followers decided to take over the world. Mm-hmm. By the way, the reds, the greens, and the blues share the opinion they all should take over the world. And so collectively, they're trying to take over the world. We, the yellows and the whites, we don't wake up in the morning and say, oh, let's take over the world. Let's invade somebody. Let's kill some minority somewhere. So we think entirely differently from each other. The reds, the greens, and the blues play offense 100% of the time. We play defense 100%.
Now, one interesting thing that you're also saying is that as we see the confrontation between China and the United States, we're seeing the war, of course, between Ukraine and Russia. We're seeing Iran fighting the Western world. And we may see them as different events, different occurrences. And you're saying we have to look at it all as something that is connected?
Yes. Everything's connected to everything. All the bad guys are working together, either directly or indirectly, and they're working on our outside our borders and then inside our borders. So, for example, the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, or Palestinian Islamic Jihad, you're fighting them over there. But within Israel, they control mosques, they control schools. They're miseducating their children. I call it child abuse. And they're getting their children to hate the Jews. And so, therefore, the war can be in a school, it can be in a mosque. That I call that cultural warfare. But it also can be outside the border, as we just saw in the past few days.
Between me and you, who said that we're the good guys? I mean, it could be an issue of perception. We see what we are doing. We think that we're the yellows, we're the sun of the world. Maybe we just, like ourselves.
Yes. So I use the famous American sentence from the Declaration of Independence, 1776, that the function of government is to protect the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness for 100% of the population. So I define that as good. The Reds, the Greens, and the Blues believe in life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for 10% of the population. Me, my friends, the leaders, but not for the other 90%. So those three are all elitist organizations. They're more or less like in the days of old when the king made all the decisions for himself. And in those days, if I interviewed the king, pretend the king of 3,000 years ago would say, I only care about life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for me and my family. So this is a tradition that's gone on from authoritarian leaders forever and ever and ever. But I call it World War III. It's actually World War I. But since World War chronologically, but since World War I and II are already named, therefore I have no choice but to call it World War III.
Ken Abramowitz, I know that you're a person of research, of academia, but you're also about activism. So the big question is, okay, you explained to us that we're in World War III. What should the world do? What needs to be done differently, understanding that big picture of this World War III?
Well, I look at it as somewhat like a football game or any game like that. You play offense, you play defense, offense, defense. Right now, the bad guys play offense 100% of the time, and the good guys play defense 100% of the time. I want us to be more like a football game. I want us to play offense and defense 50% of the time. So I would say the number one thing that I won't want is a realization in societies that we're fighting a battle. We have to have a strategy to win. And at certain times we should play offense, and at certain times we should play defense, but we cannot continue to play defense 100% of the time.
Okay, Ken Abramowitz, founder of SaveTheWest.com. Thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure to be with you, as always.